Hello everyone and welcome back to the Backlog Bunker. This week I just want to talk about roguelikes, because I've really only been playing PokeRogue and Dead Cells. I did technically play Spider-Man while I was away, but that's Spider-Man, so that game doesn't really have a lot of interesting things to say about it. To start with PokeRogue, I finally beat the game, because I realized how you're supposed to play it. First of all, you're supposed to catch a lot of guys, like all the time. Not only to add to your starter collection so that you can start the game in an easier position, but also to actually get to the end of the game with. Because there's a very good chance the Pokemon you go in with are not the Pokemon you're going to stay having the entire time. Unless, of course, you've played the Egg Gacha so much, you have every Pokemon in the game and can just raise them up from the beginning. Or alternatively, if you only have really good Pokemon and you just keep them to the end. So, like, Necrozma was who I went in with, and he stayed on my team till the end of the game, because of course he did, it's fucking Necrozma. This isn't to say that your entire team has to be made up of Ubers to be able to beat the game, but just that you shouldn't go in with anything that isn't a really good Pokemon, because, again, Necrozma stayed on my team, but I think the Combee that I went in with didn't. And doing all of that is an especially big waste of time if none of your Pokemon have Pokerus. And then there's the Egg Gacha like I mentioned before, which is an awful mechanic, because you can only roll so many times and it's all fucking random. So you just gotta grind over and over and over again for more fucking candies and more fucking egg vouchers so you can get Pokemon that are hopefully good. Because I got lucky with Necrozma, that was like one of the earliest Pokemon that I got from the eggs as soon as I realized I was supposed to be doing that. But what the fuck would I have done if I'd gotten Avalugg, or Ambipom, some stupid shit like that? Which is why, despite having beaten the game, I'm still heavily dissatisfied with how it actually plays. Which is what brings me to Dead Cells, because I've mentioned before that I love Dead Cells a lot. I really like playing the game, but it's starting to get more and more in my nerves as of late, because the more I play, the more weapons I've started to unlock. And the more weapons I've started to unlock, the more I've realized that a lot of them are weapons I don't like, or are just shit. Or if I get lucky and it is a good weapon or a weapon that I like, it ends up not being for the scroll type that I have right now. Like, I love the Assassin's Dagger, but I can't fucking use it when I'm using green scrolls. The fact that the game can even spawn in weapons for the scrolls you aren't currently maxed out in is fucking crazy to me. Because why on God's green earth would I want a green weapon if I have a red build? Or, you know, any other combination of things. For skills or items, I get it. There have been times where I go with the Ice Grenade even though I'm on a red build because freezing enemies is just that fucking powerful in the game. But for weapons, the entire point of them is to do damage. So if they aren't doing damage, then why would I want them? But what does this have to do with PokeRogue? Well, as I was mentioning earlier, what the fuck would I have done if the things that I gotten from eggs were Avaluggs or Ambipoms or Ledians, whatever stupid bad Pokemon that exist? I say that the answer would be nothing. I wouldn't be able to do anything. I would just have to be able to keep playing the game over and over and over again until maybe I can get a tool that I can actually use. Because even disregarding the randomness, which is also stupid and shitty by the way, but not what we're talking about right now. Even disregarding the randomness, I just don't understand why you would put so many tools in the game that aren't meant to be used. Because what are these tools if not filler? Now, PokeRogue is kind of a bad example because I assume every Pokemon's in the game. You know, as is the point of Pokemon, Game Freak. But genuinely, why would anyone even bother trying to raise or catch an Avalugg? What would it do for their team in any capacity? Even if you want to say that it gives ice coverage, A, that's not going to carry them very far if you don't have super effectiveness with ice, and B, it's fucking Avalugg. Even with the super effectiveness with ice, it's still Avalugg, so he's gonna suck dick. Again though, this isn't to say that every non-meta Pokemon is just not worth taking in, because there are niche setups, and the same thing applies to Dead Cells. There are a lot of weapons that aren't very good by themselves, but when you combine them with other tools, they become really fucking good. But there are some weapons in both games that I can't see ever having some sort of niche setup that can make them viable. In what context is Avalugg winning PokeRogue for you? In what context can you use fucking Death Scythe in Dead Cells, you know, from the Castlevania DLC? It almost feels like a gimmick weapon. But then, even if I'm wrong, even if there is some super niche and rare setup with Avalugg, or with Death Scythe, or whatever item in whatever game, maybe even if there is some minuscule tiny thing that you could maybe do to make these things work really well for you, when is that ever going to happen in these games that are filled with randomness? Ironically, despite how much I hate PokeRogue being an RPG that's also a roguelike, it actually does a little bit better at this in giving you agency over how your team develops, because if you get put in a situation where Avalugg is going to learn the move that makes Avalugg really good, then you can just choose to get it. Assuming, of course, it's a learn move and not like a TM. But even if it is a TM, if you have an Avalugg on your team and the TM comes up, even if you don't need it at that current moment, if you know that you're going to need it later, which should be fair, you'd only know if you had already played to a certain point in the game, but still, if you knew that you were going to need it later, you can still have agency in deciding, okay, I'm going to keep this for later, when you know what's going to pay off. In Dead Cells, however, a lot of the potential of weapons comes out in combination with other weapons or items, like the oiled sword, for example. It's a pretty bad weapon if you don't have any tools to set the enemy on fire, or if you have one fire grenade and one other thing that sets enemies on fire, I don't know, like pyrotechnics or something. You'll be doing critical damage constantly. That's a niche setup that works really, really well. But there's one problem: if you get the oiled sword, how do you know you're gonna get a fire weapon? Or the other way around, if you get a fired weapon, how do you know you're gonna get the oiled sword? The answer is that you don't know, so you're just gonna have to go throughout your entire run, hoping and praying that you get the thing that you actually fucking want, and if you don't get it, well, it sucks to be you, start over again, bitch! Which is why I hate roguelikes so much, because it feels like the entire concept of the genre is just disregarding anything the player actually might come up with. The entire concept of problem solving is just lost on roguelikes, because even when you come up with a solution to a problem, you just won't be able to answer. I also hate deck building games for their randomness, but at the very least in a deck building game, you're the one building the deck. If you get a bad pull and it loses you the entire game, then you could have just built a better deck. Maybe. I don't know. There are a lot of card games that I haven't gotten into, that being all of them, so if that really just isn't the case sometimes, then, you know, who knows. But as far as I understand a Hearthstone or a Yu-Gi-Oh!, the entire concept of building a deck is to mitigate your potential losses. You're never going to be given a tool that you can't use, because your entire job was to make the toolbox. But in roguelikes, you get none of that courtesy. If anything, Dead Cells is a particularly odd game in this scenario, because if you were starting up a new game, and you already knew what weapons you were going to use, like let's say you have encyclopedic knowledge of every weapon in the game, it would be within your best interest to not unlock any of them. You would only ever spend your cells at the forge, because doing anything else would be fucking stupid. Why unlock a bunch of shitty items and add them to the pool of potential weapons you can get, when you can just not do that and make sure you get the weapons you actually want to use? Sorry that this week is just a roguelike rant, but that's most of what I played this week, so it's hard to think of anything else that I had more thoughts about. Except for, of course, the Nintendo Direct, which I have a few specific thoughts about when it comes to certain games. Obviously not the whole thing. I don't have anything to say about Disney Slop Game number 21, which there are an odd number of on the Switch, right? But we can start with Dragon Quest, which I am happy about, because I want to see more Dragon Quest re-releases the same way that there are Final Fantasy re-releases. Why is it that I can buy the whole fucking Final Fantasy franchise on PC, but I can't do that for Dragon Quest? So yeah, I'm happy that 1 and 2 are getting these remakes, but where's Dragon Quest 12? I kinda want that game to come out sometime soon before I die. Then in terms of Patapon, I don't have anything to say about Patapon specifically, I just wanted to point out that the way that they revealed Patapon was very much like, it was very Rhythm Heaven, right? Because they didn't say the name of the game, they're just like, our rhythmic adventure or some shit. And I'm glad that I wasn't watching the Direct live and I hadn't seen all the game announcements live, because Nintendo posts a lot of shit to their YouTube channel. Because if I had seen that live, I would have thought it was Rhythm Heaven and then cried when it wasn't. There would have been real tears from having been denied what's so rightfully mine. Obligatory mention of $50 trillion more to farming sims. Then Metroid Prime 4, which again is not a game I have anything to say about personally. Just wanted to mention that I kind of wish that I liked Metroidvanias, because for how awesome it is for Metroid fans to have Prime return in the way that it was supposed to, what, 7 years ago at this point? I feel absolutely nothing, because I don't like Metroidvanias, and I see this and I go, wow, cool, it's another fucking Metroid game that I'm not gonna buy. But then as for a game that I don't usually like, but that did catch my attention, Pokemon Legends ZA. I skipped out on Arceus because that entire game is about catching, which I think is the least engaging part of Pokemon in every single game. Even when they try to make it more like tactile because you throw the balls at things, it's still just stupid and boring because you don't do anything in the game. But ZA is making an improvement in that there's actually a focus on battles now. There's like people to fight in the game. It's crazy. It didn't happen in Legends Arceus. At least not often enough to make it like a real Pokemon game. So there's actually more of a reason for me to get ZA this time, aside from just that I like Zygarde. Though there's still the very minor problem in that it's still just AI battles, and AI battles are also a super weak part of Pokemon because Pokemon games are for babies. I'm hoping that there's more to draw me to ZA, but I'm guessing there's probably not going to be. Then for the actual Rhythm Heaven trailer, the only thing that I really want to mention about it is the thing they said at the very, very beginning, which was that this game doesn't have a big epic story, it's just about funny little rhythm games. And to most people, that probably doesn't mean anything, because like, yeah, of course, it's Rhythm Heaven, of course it didn't have a story. But, if you'll remember Rhythm Heaven Mega Mix, it did, for some fucking reason, have a story, with unskippable cutscenes, by the way. So when I think about that line from the beginning of the trailer, I think one of two things, because it can mean two very different things. The first thing it can mean is what I want, which is that they took all that bullshit out of Mega Mix, which brings me to, if Groove takes everything that was bad about Mega Mix out, and keeps everything that was good, we'll have a 10 out of 10 Rhythm Heaven game. It'll be fucking immaculate. But then there's the other interpretation, which is that it doesn't have a big epic story, but it does have a story, which is stupid and bad, and don't put that in the game. Mega Mix was the first time the Rhythm Heaven team took a huge departure from anything that they did before, so I can't say how well they take good ideas and get rid of bad ideas, but here's hoping that Rhythm Heaven Groove is the best one. Everybody's Golf looks interesting to me because it looks like Toadstool Tour, which is my favorite golf game ever. But seeing them in this context and not in the Mario context kinda just makes me want to play Toadstool Tour and not this. Though I do appreciate that the version of the game they used in the trailer was the version held together by fucking spit and grit, because everything is popping in, it runs like shit, it looks awful. Cosmic Invasion makes me really happy because it's a pixel graphics 4-player Marvel beat-em-up game in the year 2025. The world is healing. We're on our way back to good video games, I promise. Then finally, Tomodachi Life, which I know a lot of people are really happy about. And, were I a younger version of myself who really liked role-playing in games, the version of myself who did really like Tomodachi Life, I would have fucking creamed at this announcement. Because, yay, new Tomodachi Life, awesome. But, as I've gotten older, I've realized more and more that Tomodachi Life just isn't really a very good game, because there's nothing to do in it. It's like The Sims if you had way less agency over anything that your Sims did. And the things your Sims could actually do was a very limited pool. Again, happy for the people who wanted this, but as someone who loved Tomodachi Life as a child and does not love the game anymore because I know what it is, I'm wondering if this is what people think they want, or if it's what people actually want. And for $20 more than the original Tomodachi Life, by the way, which I wouldn't even price at $40 if I had the choice. For anyone who's sitting on your hands waiting for this, I hope you get exactly what you're looking for, because sometimes series disappear for a reason.